I'll call the December meeting of the Ridgefield Planning Commission to order. If everyone could please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Moore, if you could do roll call.
Commissioner Glavin,
Present.
Commissioner Borkart,
Present.
Commissioner Flynn,
Present.
Commissioner Butler,
Present.
and Commissioner Tyler.
Present. Thank you. Ms. Lust, are there any late changes to the agenda?
No late changes, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, well then at this time we'll move into our first public comment period. Now is the time for a public comment. Anyone requesting to speak to the commission may request to speak at this time. If you have not provided notice in advance to speak during the public comment period, you may use the raise hand feature and the clerk will send you permission to unmute your microphone so you're able to make your comments. For controls over the phone, press *9 for raise hand and press *6 to mute and unmute. And if you're in the audience, you can come to the microphone. Is there anybody wishing to make a public comment at this time? Anyone on Zoom? Not seeing anybody, we will close the public comment period. We'll move to the consent agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? And if nobody has any comments or changes, we have a motion.
Chair, I motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll now move on to the business. Turn the time over to Ms. Lust.
Thank you, Chair Tyler. Good evening, Planning Commission and members of the public. This evening we have a presentation for the Planning Commission on the city's Critical Areas Ordinance update. This is update that cities and counties are required to complete periodically to comply with updates to state law, best available science. And the presentation this evening is just that. It is informational. That said, we will have time at the end for question and answer, and at any point during the presentation, if you would like to interrupt with a question, please feel free. Not requesting any recommendations or feedback necessarily at this meeting, but getting a lot of information in front of the Planning Commission so that as we go forward in this process, you are informed, and when we bring proposals back to you, you are informed and able to make good recommendations. So with me here this evening, next to me in person is Kevin Gross. Kevin, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
So some of you may know me. I've been around a long time. Hi, Niall. Yeah, I've worked in Clark County for 35 years plus, and moved away for a little bit. Now I'm back, have a new company, all that kind of stuff. So my focus has been wetlands and wildlife habitat over the time I've been here. So know just about everybody's ordinance, and so yeah.
Including Ridgefield's ordinance.
Including the Ridgefield.
And then online is our consulting planner, Eric Eisman. Eric, can you please introduce yourself, and then we'll get the slides up on the screen and I'll have you take it away.
Sure. You can hear me now?
You are a bit quiet, but I think we can try to...
Let me try to bump up the volume here a little bit here. Right. How about now? Is that better?
I can hear. Can commissioners hear? I think we're fine, Eric.
Okay, all right, I'll try to speak not softly. I typically have a soft voice. So.
We turned our sound up, so we're good.
Okay. Thank you, Claire. My name is Eric Eisenman. I have a small planning company called E Squared Land Use Planning Services. I have been fortunate to assist the city of Ridgefield with land use planning issues since 1994. when the city had a population of less than 1,000 people. So I've been involved with the city's comprehensive plan process, its ordinance development, development review, but I've also worked throughout Clark County, Southwest Washington, and the state of Oregon as a consulting land use planner. I have a background in land use, and I also have a JD, a law degree from which I've since retired. So that's my background. Are you there?
Yes, we are here. Thank you. We're just
Okay.
working on sharing the presentation.
All right.
All
There
right.
we go. I see that now. So what I'll do is as I get into, well, I will say next slide, and if you could just advance the slide, that would be great.
That works.
Appreciate that. Great, thanks, Claire. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight, but I am looking forward to meeting you in person after the first of the year as we continue to go through this process. This is an informational meeting, as Claire said, and I'm sure you'll end up with some questions or comments. But right now, we're just going to try to give you a broad perspective on what's coming in front of you in the next few months. So as you know, as Claire said, we're in the GMA update process, and we're required to go through the critical areas ordinance update. So if we can go to the next slide, that'd be great. So legislative action requires the cities to update their comprehensive plan. Legislative action also requires us to consider our critical areas ordinance. This happens about every 10 years. And so this is probably the third iteration of the city's critical areas ordinance that we're going to be looking at. The first one came in about 1996, if I'm not mistaken. We can move to the next slide. So the update process is fairly simple. We conduct what's called best available science review. Kevin has already been working on that, and you've seen the draft that he's presented. It's in your packet. We complete the Department of Commerce critical areas checklist, which I've done. What happens in that checklist is the Commerce staff puts together a list of all of the state regulations that relate to critical areas, and then our job is to look at our code, Chapter 18280 in Ridgefield, and make declarative statements as to whether we comply with the state law, and if not, what we need to do to come into compliance. And the big part of the process, which I'll talk about a little bit more at the end of this presentation, is we engage the public. We conduct stakeholder interviews, and we also reach out to agencies and tribes to find out what their feedback is as to how Ridgefield's program has been operating. Next slide, please. So you will hear a lot about best available science. As Claire mentioned, it is a mandate under state law. We've given you a WAC citation there. It is a legislatively determined scientific process. We don't really need to go into the background of all of that, but the state legislature is requiring us to use best available science when we develop our critical areas ordinance, and applications that come forward and are under review by the cities have to be evaluated in the context of best available science. The state law allows every jurisdiction to initiate its own best available science process based on the how line that you see at the bottom of the screen there. And the city has an opportunity to create its own best available science. However, because of the expense and the time involved in the review process, most jurisdictions, and almost everyone I've ever worked with, will rely on state agency or federal agency guidance and recommendation as for best available science. So next slide, please. There is one new piece of legislation that you hopefully will consider and make a recommendation one way or the other on. Cities under 25,000 people can adopt their county's critical area ordinance by reference. That would be an action by the city council based on a recommendation from the Planning Commission. If you do so, the city would incorporate any future county amendments into its critical areas ordinance. The Planning Commission, the City Council would no longer have to sit through a review process like listening to me at this point, because you would not be doing any updates. The county would do that. You would essentially administer the county's code. The city staff would administer the county's code. In my experience so far, there are very few jurisdictions in Southwest Washington that have taken advantage of that opportunity. Next slide, please. 2 key points out of this 4-point bullet list that I want to bring to your attention is the Department of Commerce, as well as the ecology and the agencies, are emphasizing that local critical areas ordinances should emphasize avoidance of the critical areas as the primary tool. Typically what happens is a project comes forward for review. The applicant has critical areas on their property. They try to change their project in such a way that they can avoid the critical areas, but when they can't or choose not to, then they do what's called minimizing the impact. And after they've minimized the impact to ensure no net loss of function and value, then they will mitigate. And mitigation can occur on site, or frequently it can also occur in mitigation banks for wetlands and riparian areas. So avoidance is the new push that we're getting through from the state, as opposed to minimization and mitigation. The other thing is the third point on this slide is the permit monitoring and adaptive management. We're encouraged, not required, but we're encouraged to take a look at our critical areas program with a fine eye to determine whether or not it is actually meeting the requirements of state law, protecting the resources, but also helping to this local jurisdiction implement its best, its comprehensive plan. So we'll go to the next slide. So I'm going to turn this over to Kevin, and Kevin's going to work through the 5 critical areas as they relate to Ridgefield. But before I do that, I just want to mention that Kevin and I have, as I said, have worked together on several critical areas ordinances over our long years of association. But also, Kevin, as a professional biologist, also represents development interests on occasion. And I, as a land use planner with a law background, represent the city's interests. And so sometimes we've come together and I'll be reviewing his project on behalf of the city of Ridgefield, and we'll come to a resolution. So I think one reason I'm mentioning this is that what I think we bring to this conversation is a perspective from the city side as to how we comply with the law and meet our requirements under growth management, and as well as the professional biologist's perspective and the property owner developer's interests. So I think it's a good balance. With that, I'll turn it over to Kevin, and then I'll come back with some closing comments at the end.
Thank you, Eric. So I'm going to go through the 5 critical areas. I'm going to spend more time on fish and wildlife, habitat conservation areas, and wetlands than on our critical aquifer recharge areas, and frequently flooded areas, and geologic hazardous areas, because those are pretty much set critical areas in the city and in the state by state and federal mandates. But there are some changes that are coming down the pike for fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas that will more than likely impact development within the city of Ridgefield, and is impacting other, the county and other localities within the state. So with that, GMA requires us to protect certain areas, as Eric said, allow no net loss of functions and values. And if I get talking too fast, just tell me to slow down. Also, if you have questions while I'm talking, just let me know and we can stop and I can try and answer them for you. To map, include best available science, map the general locations, and designate fish and wildlife habitat conservation. So when a project comes in, typically if there's something that shows up on either the county mapping or on or Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife mapping, the city will require a biologist to prepare a report to see what that area is, and so it's documented. Next slide. Oh, you want me to do that? So areas that are designated as fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas are generally state and federally listed endangered, threatened, and sensitive species, priority habitats, and species designated by Department of Fish and Wildlife, seasonal corridors, rare plants and ecological communities designated by Department of Natural Resources Heritage Program. Also, the city has the option of protecting areas under that they think need to be protected under local protection. So it's the city can, if there's something that's not being protected that the city knows of that they would like to see protected, they can do that themselves, or somebody in the city can bring it up and do it that way. Which one do I push here? So this slide shows what's mapped by the county as fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas. The blue areas are generally associated with biodiversity areas that are associated with streams like G Creek, Flume Creek, Allen Canyon Creek. The brown areas are typically species areas, which are generally waterfowl, especially around Bachelor Island. The areas out to the east are probably goose habitat areas. There used to be a lot more out there, but as development takes place, goose habitat's generally fields that they can graze in, and as that gets developed, there's nothing there for them, so they get taken away. So, but next, please. This basically shows the same thing, but this is mapped by Department of Fish and Wildlife, biodiversity corridors, riparian areas, and species habitat areas. Next, please. So the big change is coming down. Basically, let's talk about what the current city ordinance basically bases riparian buffers on stream types. So there are 4 types of streams: shorelines of the state, fish-bearing streams, non-fish-bearing streams that are perennial, and non-fish-bearing streams that are seasonal. And the buffers basically go from, if I remember right, 200 down to 75, is that what it is? Somewhere in that range. So Fish and Wildlife has come up with a new system to determine what is needed to protect riparian areas. And so it's based on the soils and how long it would take to grow a tree 200 feet tall. So it's kind of a different system than what we had before. So each site has a soil classification, and trees grow at different rates in each soil classification. Then they add on what type of stream it is. If it's a shoreline of the state, and it's a class 2 soil, you could have a 235-foot buffer. If it's, as you go down from a fish bearing to, with a class 2, you could have 205-foot buffer, and keeps going down as you get down to a non-fish bearing seasonal stream. It's down to 100 feet, I think, 125. You agree? Okay. Next slide, please. So this basically talks about 200-year-old tree site potential height and what's needed to maintain a riparian buffer to protect the streams. Next slide, please. Oh, there's a wetland thing. Okay, threw me. Okay, so the next is wetlands. Ecology has provided guidance on wetland buffers, wetland categories, and it's pretty much a standard that everybody's using these days. Nothing has really changed much. One thing that will change in the city's ordinance is, well, let me go back. Wetland buffers are based on category. There's category 1, 2, 3, 4. Category 1 being the best wetlands that have the largest buffers. Category 4 being the least functions and values, having typically, I don't even know, 75 down to 50, depending upon the habitat score. So habitat scores and the land intensity use determine, and the category wetland determine what the buffers are going to be. So the big change has been for low habitat scores, with scores between 3 and 4, and now they're adding 5 for habitat score. So those are the low functions. The next moderate are 6 and 7, higher 8 or 9, and that will determine what the buffers are. Right now, the city's ordinance puts 5 as a moderate intensity or a buffer. Yeah. So just, I don't know if you know how wetlands are determined. Nothing has changed with that. It's basically sent out by the Corps of Engineers. We follow their manuals as to what it is. There's a supplement to the 1987 manual that for this area, which basically uses vegetation, soils, and hydrology to determine if it's a wetland or not. You probably, living here, know what's wetland in your backyard or not. So if you dig a hole and it's nasty looking gray soil, you probably have a wetland with certain vegetation and squishy grass. So yeah, so as Eric had mentioned, avoidance has been the big push. Keeping at least 100-foot buffers and not allowing them to be reduced more. One of the things from a development standpoint that we use is indirect impacts to wetlands to get more development area. There's a pushback on how much of that you can actually use on a site. Sometimes some cities allow us to go down to 0, right to the buffer, right to the wetland edge. The county only allows 25% of the indirect impacts to take place. So it's one of the things that ecology has been pushing us on. So something that we'll be digging through as we go through this. So here's where the wetlands are located in the city limits. Most of them are associated with the streams and stream corridors. There are a few areas where wetlands occur outside of that. These are basically pockets of high water tables or perched water tables so where the water doesn't drain. So the soils in Ridgefield vary quite a bit. If you have Odney soils, you probably have a wetland on your property. If you have G soils, it's questionable. So it's all about the soil. All right, critical aquifer recharge areas, CARAs. So CARAs are important because they protect drinking water. There are Category 1 CARAs, which are protected wellheads, and there are Category 2 CARAs, which protect areas which contribute to groundwater and to wells. And that's the big thing is protecting groundwater and protecting wellheads. These are the wellhead areas in Ridgefield. So you don't want anything that's going to contaminate the groundwater around a recharge area. You know, no types of developments that are going to allow chemicals, biological waste, or anything like that going through the soils and contaminating the groundwater system. Floodplain and frequently managed, frequently flooded areas. This is basically a 100-year floodplain. The 100-year floodplain here is basically some areas of G Creek and also along Lake River. Anything that happens in these, you know, it's protected. It's not that you can't develop in them, but it's a volume issue. It's a cubic foot per, or yard per cubic yard. If you impact a cubic yard, you have to replace the volume in there. So it's also managed by FEMA. FEMA sends out the maps that designates what the floodplain is. It's mostly, like I said, it's mostly G Creek and Lake River. Yeah, and right through Abrams Park. So as I said, they're managed by FEMA. FEMA designates the maps, need to protect special flood hazard areas and the 100-year floodplain. Geologic hazard areas. Don't know much about them. We looked up the literature. There wasn't a whole lot of literature for changes in it. Actually, if you go to the next slide. So the city has some significant slope areas that anything over 25% can't be built on. I think you need to maintain a 30-foot buffer off of a 25% slope, but there are other areas that make it difficult, and all of it's along the stream corridors in the city. So this shows where steep slopes are and where development has taken place. It's avoided the steep slopes. Yep. Back to Eric.
Well, hopefully one of the takeaways from seeing the slides of the mapped critical areas in Ridgefield is to get a sense of how development has occurred throughout the community and to give you a sense of whether the critical area program has been successful. For the most part, but not completely, but for the most part, as new subdivisions come in, they're built around wetlands. They're built away from the steep slopes. There's a buffer that's at the head of the slope and at the toe of the slope. The big concern in Ridgefield with slopes is slides and unstable soils, and also just erosion hazards. And sometimes you can see when there's a heavy rainfall, and you can see G Creek gets kind of muddy in places throughout the whole creek. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish with the steep slopes and erosion control. And so I think overall, the program has been successful in guiding development. The question that we're now being asked is to monitor the program more than we have and to determine whether it's fair and effective and efficient and successful. So fairness is fairness to whom? Fairness to the property owner is one of the issues that we need to consider. Are the regulations fairly implemented? Are they too burdensome? Are they effective? Do they actually succeed in protecting the resource functions and values and ensuring that there is no net loss of those functions and values as the state law requires? Are the regulations efficient, and is the management program efficient? When we go through the development review process, are we telling people up front what those critical area concerns we have based upon the state and the county mapping system? And then when we go through the review process, is it a timely review? Typically, I'll tell you that if it's a site plan in the city of Ridgefield, we strive for about a 45-day review process. Sometimes it goes over that. That's once the application is determined to be complete and all the information is there. And then the other question is the program successful? And again, that's a value-laden requirement. Successful in protecting the resources, but also is it successful in helping the city implement its comprehensive plan, its goals for future residential development, for commercial development, and industrial development? Is there a balance that's being struck here? One of the points that I think is important, and I think we mentioned it in our written material, is that enhancement is not a goal of the state's critical area program. It is to maintain no net loss of functions and values of the resource. So then the question, when you start looking at, well, should we be doing more? Then the question is coming back to, is it successful? It's successful in what ways? So there's a list of questions that I've put together that I think that I would hopefully be able to talk with you about when we get back together in the new year to try to determine how we're going to quantify, if you will, whether Ridgefield's program is fair, efficient, effective, and successful. Next slide, please. So one of the primary tools that we're recommending that we do to determine whether the program is fair, efficient, successful, is to conduct stakeholder interviews. There have been a lot of people over the last 30 years who have developed property in this community, property owners, developers. There have been a lot of people who've reviewed Ridgefield's compliance with the state law relating to best available science in critical areas. So we need to talk to those folks. We need to talk to the development interests. We need to talk to state agency folks. We need to talk to consultants. We need to talk to the tribes and find out what their perspective is on how this process has been structured and how it has been managed over time. That's a conversation that we hope to bring back to you, the results of our conversations bring back to you after the first of the year. What we're going to continue to do in the interim is Kevin will complete his work on his best available science literature review. I'll work with Claire by the end of this month to prepare a report to the Department of Commerce as to where the city is in its update process. And then when we get back together, we will work with Claire and we'll start drafting some potential amendments, not necessarily in legislative format, but some things that we would want to bring to your attention for discussion where we need to comply with state law or we've heard this feedback and this feedback is required and asking us to take another look at a particular topic. We'll come back to you and hopefully have two gatherings in-person meetings where you'll get a chance to review the science, review the stakeholders' questions, and look at the amendments that we are suggesting you consider. You'll make a formal recommendation to the City Council as you do for development regulations, as you always do. And then we hit a break. And that break is the Department of Commerce requires us to have a 60-day review period where they have a chance to look at our amendments. We'll have to go through the State Environmental Policy Act review process and then get to the City Council for final adoption. And the goal is to have this all wrapped up by June of 2026. It's a fairly aggressive schedule, but because the regulatory changes that the agencies are suggesting based on best available science are for the most part, except for the riparian corridors, not that significant. So with that, I'll stop and I'll turn it back to Claire, and I look forward to seeing you in person in the future.
Thank you, Eric and Kevin. Chair Tyler, I will go ahead and turn it back to you to see if the commission has any initial questions for our presenters.
Sure, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments? Please.
Thank you both for your presentation. Mr. Eisman, I have a couple questions for you. One, regarding the aggressive schedule. Even though the changes that are required don't seem to be significant, but I'm assuming every municipality has to go through this. So is there any concern that the 60-day review with the Department of Commerce is going to be able to get done in 60 days? Or should we be thinking that it would take them longer to get back to us?
Commerce has 60 days to get back to us. They don't necessarily have a mechanism for delaying that, so I'm looking at a 60-day hard date.
Terrific. And then my second question, I think that you said that now that cities can adopt the county's critical area ordinance, just word for word, or just reference it in the city code, I think you said that no cities, at least here locally, have taken advantage of that. I'm wondering if you could give us some details as to why you think that might be, or is it just such a new program that no one has had a chance to take advantage of it?
Hopefully what I said is that I'm not aware of any.
Okay.
So just with that qualification, I'll start my comment, my response. I'd be happy to poll other cities in particular, but since the cap is at 25,000, we're really looking at Ridgefield, La Center, Washougal, and Camas. Battleground, I think they're at 25,000 right now. But my philosophical take on it is that cities like to control their own review process. They like to be able to massage their ordinances when particular issues come up as it relates to their community. And the county's program is, from a city's perspective, is more like a one-size-fits-all. And sometimes local officials, planning commission members, elected officials like to be able to interject some of their own review process. For example, we may not be able to change best available science, but there's a question that's going on at the county level right now as to what they're going to do with that 200 foot tree requirement along riparian borders, and to what extent they're going to adopt that. If we adopt their ordinance, we're left with whatever they decide. You may have a different opinion on what the county does. I don't know yet. Hopefully I answered your question.
That was perfect. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Yes, so conducting stakeholder interviews, has that process already been started? Have the stakeholders been made aware?
Yeah, we've put
Go ahead,
together.
would you like to do it? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Sorry. We have put together a list of stakeholders. There are a few people on that list that know they'll be contacted, particularly our partner agency staff, such as the planning team at WDFW. But that process of reaching out to people and setting up times to talk and going through that will be starting here this month. Eric, do you have any more detail?
I would only add, that's absolutely correct, Claire. I would only add to it, we're not going to try to convene a gathering of stakeholders, given the holidays and the compressed time schedule. So Kevin and I will be conducting telephone interviews or on occasion an in-person interview, but that's how we'll be doing it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or comments or questions from commissioners? Not seeing any, Ms. Lust. Turn it back to you.
All right, thank you again, Planning Commission, and our presenters. I think we can go ahead and wrap up the presentation. Hopefully the presentation and the material in the packet is stuff that y'all can return to and continue to think about. And as Eric mentioned a couple of times, we will be coming back to you in the new year for next steps. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the presenters. Appreciate it. Now we'll go to the second of our public comment periods. So now is the time for public comment again. Anyone requesting to speak to the commission may request to speak at this time. If you have not provided notice in advance to speak during the public comment period, please use the raise hand feature. And the clerk will send you permission to unmute your microphone so you're able to make your comments. For controls over the phone, press *9 for raise hand and press *6 to mute and unmute. Is there anybody wishing to make a comment during this public comment period? Anyone on Zoom? Doesn't appear so. We'll close the second public comment period. We'll go to staff reports. Ms. Lust.
Thank you again. Couple things for staff reports. First being that tomorrow's council meeting, a couple of things. They will be appointing new planning commission members. They will also be having their second touch and taking action, if they wish, on batch 2 of the development code amendments. This was the batch that had a good chunk of stuff about residential uses, as well as some miscellaneous amendments, a couple things about trails, some code enforcement items as well. So if you're interested in seeing how that pans out, that is tomorrow evening, 6:30 in this room or online. And then, of course, I'll make a pitch. As you all know, this weekend is hometown celebration for Saturday, so there'll be a lot going on downtown. Really fun opportunity to be in the community, see your neighbors, etc. So enjoy.
Excellent, thank you. Now we'll do reports from the commissioners. Start at this end this time.
Perfect. Thank you, Director Lust and both presenters for the information. I wanted to share that this is my last meeting here for Planning Commission. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity to serve, volunteer here. Wanted to remind the community that this weekend is the Walk and Knocks. That'll be over at the Sunset View Ridge Complex. And just a shout out to the Public Works street sweepers. I was trying really hard to maintain my sewer or drainage that's out right front, but with all the leaves falling, it was pretty challenging. And then I remember driving home one day and the streets were just so clean. So just really appreciate the work that they're doing to keep our city looking nice. And if you're looking for the details, you will find them because they are working hard. So again, thank you for the opportunity and thanks for our guests here tonight in person.
Thank you.
Just want to say thank you, Commissioner Butler, for volunteering and giving your time, and it's much appreciated. Sad to see you go. It's been a fun year with you.
Thank you. Commissioner Flynn?
Commissioner Butler, I just echo what was just said. Your voice has been much appreciated on the Planning Commission, and you will be missed. You're an asset to everything that you do, as far as I can tell. But that includes what you've done here, so thank you very much. You've been a terrific commissioner. You really have. Thank you. Thank you to the members of the public. A shameless plug. My Uncle Mike is in town from the Bay Area. I don't see anyone else with their Uncle Mike here. So for the city staff, thanks for preparing for us today. Thank you, Mr. Gross, for being here in person. Claire, do you know, does the heat get turned off at 7 p.m. on the money? Is that what we're doing here?
We have no control over the HVAC system in this building, and
right.
sometimes it does go off.
All right. Well, members of the public and fellow commissioners, I would say let's bring a blanket for January's meeting. Probably one blanket each would be fine, not one blanket total. So thank you to the staff, and happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. And Commissioner Borchardt?
We might need some beanies over here on this end. Maybe it'll help the glare that happens on our heads. Commissioner Butler, despite my short time spending time with you, you have been a great asset to the commission, and sad to see you go, but wish you the best in the future, and happy holidays to everybody as well.
Thank you, and also a very big thank you to Commissioner Butler for all you've done for the commission. Not only that, I appreciate your involvement beyond the commission as well. I did see your name on the budget, so I'm sure that spent a lot of time and effort putting into that as well. So really appreciate all you've done for the city and working with us. It's been a pleasure. Sad to see you go, but definitely wish you the best going forward. I don't have anything particular myself. I'll make a similar plug for this Saturday. I think it's also the Christmas tree lighting is that in the evening, so definitely looking forward to that. It's always a fun event, and so definitely recommend everyone to get out to that if possible. So, and then if it gets cold, you can wear your Christmas sweaters. I'm glad I pulled it out for this meeting. So, again, thank you everybody, and I believe that's everything. So we'll adjourn at this time.